Hello everybody, this is Fun Police, and I am back with what is going to be the second faction overview for the U.S. forces. Last time we took a look at the Wehrmacht and what it offered, and the U.S. Has stuff that is going to seem kind of familiar compared to the Wehrmacht, but also stuff that is vastly different. It's been really cool to do this, and I've still been enjoying Company of Heroes a whole lot. Make sure to like and subscribe, and tell me down in the comments if you've enjoyed the U.S. forces. Helps me out, as I'm going to probably do one last Company of Heroes 3 video before this pre-alpha closes in just a few days. Anyway, let's just jump right into it. The first unit we're going to take a look at is the Scout Squad. It is built from the HQ for 160 manpower and is your starting unit. It is a 3-man squad armed with M1 Garand rifles, and notably has an increased sight range alongside it capping territory 50% faster than the standard infantry. It has a single upgrade in a utility package for 30 munitions, which allows it to launch flares and smoke grenades. Veterancy-wise, it has the Stealth Recon ability, where the squad will holster its weapons and crawl, but is able to move over open ground undetected. And or it can also upgrade passive healing, which the squad will simply heal itself when outside of combat. The Scout Squad is largely a utility-based unit. Combat-wise, the low model size makes it ineffective at really engaging anything that isn't something like a Pioneer squad, which is based at close range and just can't do much. It can support, definitely it can be a good useful one to supporting a rifleman squad with a little bit of extra damage, but it is largely a utility unit, because it is able to quickly cap territory. The flares and smoke grenades give it a lot of extra abilities, like being able to smoke an MG or allowing you to see where enemies are before making an attack. And again, the extended sight range improves its ability to work with team weapons, as you're able to now almost pretty much spot for the entirety of a firing arc of an MG or for an AT gun. And overall, it makes the Scout Squad something that maybe you don't want to produce in large numbers, but having one around, especially early game, can be very useful in order to successfully engage early engagements. The Engineer Squad is the secondary unit seen in the headquarters, costing 200 manpower. They are armed with 4 SMG M3 submachine guns and are essentially your engineer units. They have a repair ability, allowing them to heal friendly vehicles or buildings. They have various defensive buildables, such as sandbags, barbed wire, and even bunkers. Their upgrades include an M2 flamethrower for 50 munitions, which is effective at burning infantry out of cover or garrisons, or the hazard removal package, which gives them minesweeper and wire cutters. They also are able to light it up with their first veterancy option, which, if armed with a flamethrower, they can fire an extended prolonged burst with the flamethrower, which offers incredible damage for anything that happens to stay too long within it. Or they can also choose Superior Fieldcraft, which, if upgraded with the hazard removal packages, allows the Engineer Squad to repair faster, have better mine detection, and also build at a quicker rate. The Engineer Squad is actually quite the potent combat unit, but relies largely on flanking units that aren't suited for close-range combat. Right now, that includes things like Grenadiers, team weapons, and stuff like the Jaeger infantry. These units are not built to handle close-range combat, and SMGs do surprisingly high damage. Armed with a flamethrower, they're even effective at dragging the enemy away from forcing the enemy out of cover. But they also are an engineer unit, and you're always going to want one of these to repair your vehicles, plant mines, build sandbags, and do all the stuff that engineer units normally do. The first tech building that you're going to get access to is the Barracks. The Barracks is 160 manpower and 15 fuel and contains rifleman squads, mortar teams, and the Jeep. It also has upgrades for the various riflemen. The first unit available in the Barracks is the Rifleman Squad. It's costing 260 manpower. They are your main infantry unit of the base US faction. They are armed with 6 Grand rifles and have various upgrades that are intended to allow them to scale into a very strong late game position. Starting out, they are largely capable at close to mid-range combat, as their semi-automatic weapons give them an edge over the slower-firing bolt actions that most early German infantry have. However, they can also be effective at long range if the enemy is using something like Pioneers, which have automatic submachine guns. They're overall highly effective, and they have 2 upgrades available within the Barracks. The first off is a grenade package. For 150 manpower and 30 fuel, riflemen will be access to hand grenades and sticky bombs. The hand grenade is very basic. It's just a grenade, while on the other side, the sticky bombs is the snare available to the rifleman squad, which can be thrown at vehicles, and if it connects and the vehicle is somewhat damaged, it will cause a critical, often resulting in a slow-moving and easy-to-kill vehicle. They also have the Browning automatic rifle package for 175 manpower and 40 fuel. All riflemen from that point on, including those already on the field, will be upgraded with a BAR, which offers more firepower and overall just improves the damage of the enemy. However, they also get the ability to upgrade a second BAR, which allows them to further increase their firepower, but it costs 70 munitions. The Browning BAR package does require a support center, which we will talk about in a minute, but this is one of the main ways to improve the riflemen. Their veterancy abilities are Pour It On Them, which is going to, for a small munition cost, allows the squad to fire at an increased rate, dealing more damage, and also adds some suppression if the squad has bars available to them. This overall allows the rifleman squad to do incredible damage and can really keep aggressive enemy units back, such as Panzer Grenadiers. And overall just gives them the ability to potentially win fights that they otherwise might not. The other option is cover to cover, which the squad will essentially run at full speed. They're not able to shoot, but will move at an incredibly high speed to a potential area. This is very useful at getting around, getting either right up in the face of certain enemy units, such as a team weapon or something like a Jaeger, which wants to be at long range. But is also useful for potentially getting the riflemen out of a dangerous situation, such as pulling them back from, say, a Panzer Grenadier squad or something that has a lot of SMGs. Both abilities are useful, and it does actually kind of depend, I would say, on what you're looking or what you're facing. If there's a lot of units that are based on close-range combat, Pour It On Them, I would say, is the better ability, but cover to cover is a much more aggressive ability. The second unit available in the Barracks is the Willys MB Jeep. For 180 manpower, it is an ultralight recon vehicle. It is armed with a 30 caliber machine gun and is an excellent harasser. It has an increased line of sight and has a lot of upgrades potentially available for it. The first one is the Command Jeep, which the Jeep will get upgraded with an officer, which further increases line of sight and also allows an ability that can detect enemies in the fog of war. Also, the officer will improve nearby infantry, making the Willys Jeep a potential rally point as it gives your infantry more power. Or it can upgrade to a medical Jeep. Now, this is not able, it loses its machine gun, but is able to heal nearby infantry. Although the 50 munition cost is quite high, it is a very cheap and mobile source of healing. It also has the self-repair ability, which for 15 munitions, it will heal itself, but it's unable to move or fire when using this. Veterancy-wise, it has the first one to capture territory, which is self-explanatory. It allows the Jeep to act as a annoying unit that can quickly zip around to capture points, or it can become a resupply platform. The Jeep will have a better self-repair ability, and it is able to drop either a machine gun or a mortar onto the battlefield for a munition cost, alongside also medical supplies. And overall, it allows the Willy Jeep to kind of act like a mobile platform that can get what you need when you need it. These weapons do need to be crewed, it's important to note. But overall, the Willys Jeep is a very good early vehicle. It's able to very effectively harass the enemy unit, especially if combined with riflemen or engineer squads, which are able to heal it. It allows the riflemen to, or allows the Jeep to soften enemies up and provide a quick moving presence that can reinforce anywhere that the enemy is encountered. It obviously very quickly falls off after more significant armor comes up, but in the early game it offers that very useful thing. Then, combined with either the command upgrade or the medical Jeep alongside its veterancies, it can become an almost purely supporting vehicle. Becoming a medical Jeep that can drop weapons or whatnot, allows it to do things that aren't strictly related to combat, which allows it to extend its utility time before becoming obsolete. The final unit available to the Barracks is the M1 Mortar Team. For 260 manpower, it is a crude weapon that is a mortar, able to provide indirect but powerful supporting fire. It has two abilities to start out, a HE barrage or a smoke barrage. Neither costs any amount of munitions, but both have their uses. It also has two abilities of either the Veterancy 1 ability of Airburst Barrage, which is a essentially a stronger high explosive barrage, or it can upgrade a Delayed Fuse Barrage, which fires a much more powerful HE round, but they have a small delay before shooting, which means that the enemy can move out of the way and completely ignore it. Overall, the mortar team is actually a really, really useful unit. Mortars at the moment deal a lot of damage and are very good at softening up enemies before you attack into them. Things like team weapons or units inside garrisons will really feel the pain when they run into a mortar team that is constantly harassing them. You do have to be careful because the squad is quite vulnerable and obviously offers very little to its combat potential. But its ability to freely offer indirect support helps it to really make pushes much more possible. HE obviously can displace units, but the smoke barrage can also be incredibly useful by allowing it to block off an enemy, like a machine gun sight line, allowing your riflemen to get close and maybe throw a grenade or do whatever they need to do. Veterancy-wise, the Airburst Barrage is probably the more effective option in most scenarios, as it is very effective at simply just being a more powerful explosive HE barrage, which is very good at just bleeding the enemy quite heavily. The other option of Delayed Fuse is more effective at dealing with something like an emplacement. If you're dealing with if the enemy is spamming a lot of defensive structures like bunkers or other emplacements, this is probably the more effective one to pick up. The second option to build at the start of the game is the Weapon Support Center. It costs the same amount as the Barracks, 160 manpower and 15 fuel, but instead of offering a infantry squad, it offers a lot of support units. Namely, it has access to stuff like a 30 cal machine gun, a bazooka anti-tank team, a half-track, and a sniper. The first unit available in the support center is the M1919 Browning machine gun team. Armed with a 30 cal, it is essentially, well, it costs 250 manpower to produce, but acts as a machine gun. It's able to set up and it will fire at infantry units and is able to suppress them if they walk into the line of fire. Veterancy wise, it can either get a button vehicle. The MG team will fire at the enemy vehicle and essentially blind it and slow it down while the ability is active, or it can take cover training, where essentially the machine gun team will be able to be more durable. In the open, it'll have an accuracy, it will be tougher to deal with, and in light cover, it'll be significantly harder to deal with. These both help a lot in making the M1919 more useful. Button vehicle is very useful when combined with certain other AT options that we'll talk about in just a minute, namely the bazooka team. Meanwhile, cover training just overall makes the squad much more durable, which is something that is really nice because a lot of team weapons in Company of Heroes 3 are actually quite vulnerable and are pretty easy to roll over, especially if they get flanked. So having just essentially a way to make your machine gun team more durable really helps out. The second unit within the support center is the bazooka squad. It is 280 manpower and comes armed with 2 bazookas alongside 2 Grands and a 4-man squad. It is able to use 2 abilities, either destroy obstacles, which for 25 munitions essentially allows it to blow up areas. It'll be able to blow up buildings or certain structures and various other things, making it useful to potentially clear the way. Or it can throw an anti-tank satchel for 45 munitions. This costs a total of 45 munitions, but is essentially a super snare, being able to just deal incredibly high damage. It is able to deal high damage and cause critical damage on the tank almost every time. Their veterancy abilities are either the sprint ability, where the squad will simply move at an increased speed for a short time, or the white phosphorus rocket, which it is able to fire, and it will blind enemy vehicles and damage infantry that are around it as it lingers there for a second. The bazooka squad is overall highly effective at what it does. Most notably, the double bazookas are actually quite effective, especially against light vehicles. Bazooka teams are very good at zoning them away, as bazookas and AT in general does really good damage. However, it also can do very well against even the bigger tanks, although it does need to get onto the flanks or even the rear of the vehicle in order to truly be effective. Having these guys shoot from the front is not going to let them do much, but from the side, they can really mess up some units. Their sprint ability helps a ton in this flanking maneuver, but the white phosphorus rocket also gives them some extra utility, being able to even threaten enemy infantry by blinding them and weakening them up. You can also just, again, blind vehicles, which can help save your armor if maybe you took a bad engagement. It's a very effective source of AT and is really something that in other Company of Hero games has not been particularly good, but you could legitimately make a couple bazooka squads work as your AT until you see your late game armor come out. The third unit within the weapon support center is the sniper for 340 manpower. He's armed with a sniper rifle. He's a one-man squad, but he will instantly kill a model every time he shoots. Similar to pretty much every other sniper, there's not a whole lot to say about his abilities. He'll stealth in cover. He will stealth automatically. Although he does have 2 veteran abilities. The first one is Stealth Recon. The sniper will not fire at anybody, but can move slowly in the open, completely camouflaged. or he can unlock the field med kit, which allows him to heal himself. This is essentially the same thing as the scout squad, veterancy-wise. But overall, the sniper is very good. Snipers in this game seem to have a higher fire rate than other Company of Hero games, and as such, the sniper is very good at bleeding models, especially on things like team weapons and the elite infantry that the Germans have access to. Against grenadiers, they're not as effective, although granted, any damage for free as like this is very welcome. But it is really that in actually the sort of mid-game, or when the enemy is bringing out elite infantry, that the sniper really starts to shine. But really, he's just effective overall. And we'll talk about him maybe a little bit later, because there are certain strategies that really benefit. Namely, he works very well with units that have more sight range, which allows you to better engage targets and find targets to pick at. And overall, he is just an effective unit. The final unit available to the Weapon Support Center is the M3 half-track. It is 270 manpower and 25 fuel. It comes armed immediately with a 30 caliber machine gun and is able to transport infantry squads at the beginning. However, it has a lot of upgrades. The first thing first is that it has the M45 quad mount. For 75 munitions, the half-track loses its ability to transport, but is armed with 4 50 caliber machine guns, which dramatically increases its anti-infantry potential, and also allows it to be an anti-air unit. You can also get the 75mm anti-tank gun conversion, where the M3 equips an a 75mm AT gun. This can either be an anti-tank weapon and actually threaten enemy vehicles, or it can act as an artillery piece and actually fire and indirect explosive rounds. However, it will no longer be able to reinforce or transport infantry. Then it also has the medical half-track, which removes its 30 caliber machine gun, removes its ability to transport infantry, but allows it to heal, and it still is able to reinforce infantry, making it a purely supporting vehicle. Ability-wise, for 50 manpower, it can actually recrew a weapon. Essentially, 2 models will jump out and recrew an abandoned team weapon. Very useful to quickly get one on the front line. And its veterancy abilities are Deploy Salvage Crew, which is an ability that essentially allows it to deploy a crew that will salvage enemy wrecks and team weapons for some amount of munition cost or fuel. And then it also has the Fortify Position ability, which allows it to essentially hold down in a sort of manner, which increases its durability and gives it just makes it more durable and a better position to rally around. Overall, the M3 is actually a really strong light vehicle, being significantly stronger than the Jeep in terms of its armor values. It is immune to small arms fire, essentially, and is much better at dealing with enemy armor. The quad mount is very effective, while the 75mm is arguably the best early game vehicle you can get access to, being able to threaten enemy armor directly and also even able to harass infantry. Although the quad mount does also do a pretty close job, being a little bit more skewed towards messing infantry up in a more direct role. The medical half-track also has its uses. If you're winning, a frontline source of healing and reinforcement is always good. And then the abilities of recruiting weapon is really, really strong because it allows you to potentially be a bit more risky with your machine gun team. And if you happen to lose it, maybe because the enemy got a lucky grenade off or something like that, you're able to recrew it very quickly and keep it active on the front line without needing to sacrifice like another squad and then have them retreat because they no longer have the models to fight. You know, it's a lot easier to use. And then their abilities, both of the abilities have their uses. Salvage crews are useful if the enemy is playing vehicles, but it's only more useful later on. While the Fortified Position is probably the better one to pick up at the start, that extra durability can help save it from maybe a surprise ambush. and allows it to kind of act as a more rally center, able to move into a position, lock down a position, and then move if the area gets too hot. Now, after you have built either the barracks or the weapon support center, or both, you have to move on to the support centers in order to upgrade further. There are 3 currently available: the Air Support Center, the Mechanized Support Center, and the Infantry Support Center. These offer some direct immediate benefits, but also give you numerous upgrades, and we'll go over each of them in depth. One more thing available within the headquarters is the medical station. This offers a source of healing for your infantry, and also has the unique ability in that medics will run out into the battlefield and collect wounded soldiers, returning them to the station. If they do this, they're actually able to integrate those units as free reinforcements for squads that are here. Very, very useful. As it allows the medical station to essentially save you on manpower. Being able to reinforce a rifleman squad almost for free every so often is really good. So, upon building the Infantry Support Center, it will instantly deploy a captain retinue to your battlefield. They are a 4-man squad, with one of them armed with a M19 or a 30 caliber machine gun, giving them excellent long-range potential. They also have numerous abilities. The first thing first is that squads near the captain squad will have double experience gain, allowing them to vet up significantly faster. But he also has a flanking maneuver where you select a friendly squad and the unit will essentially move faster, take less damage, and also take less suppression, allowing them to potentially sprint past the machine gun and get onto a powerful flank. There's also Rally to Me, where when activated, the squads that retreat are able to retreat to the captain himself. He can't move, although he can still fire when this is active. He also has 2 veterancy abilities: an off-map mortar barrage or mark target. The off-map mortar barrage is very basic. You just are able to call down a mortar barrage on a small area around the captain. Or mark target, which is able to mark an enemy unit and they'll take more damage, and if against a vehicle, they'll have more penetration. Overall, the captain squad is pretty effective. And offers just a nice support unit. At 4 models, he's not strong enough to be a frontline unit, but backing up riflemen, he can be very powerful, especially with these various abilities. The mortar barrage is able to displace an enemy team weapon. Mark target makes him useful against vehicles. The flanking maneuver can be very powerful if you can get a rifleman right up in the face of something that doesn't want them to be there. And then Rally to Me has its uses. Able to soft retreat units if that's what you need. Then, in the support center itself, we have 4 upgrades. These are Advanced Field Support for 100 manpower and 25 fuel. Manpower upkeep of infantry is decreased by 25%. And squads that are reinforced from the medical tent heal or gain a veterancy bonus, meaning that when the medical center heals a squad, it is able to gain some veterancy. The demolitions package is 100 manpower and 15 fuel, and engineer squads, scout squads, and bazooka squads get demolition charges and can lay heavy AT mines. This overall allows them to threaten vehicles and also blow up buildings or certain areas if they need to. You have forward observers. Scout squads can go to 4-man, and then jeeps and scouts can call in off-map artillery. This costs 75 manpower and 15 munitions, and then a munition surplus. All infantry abilities cost 50% less. They are 100 manpower and 15 fuel. This just helps you to save a ton of munitions, both in upgrades. For example, bars go from 70 munitions to 35, making them much, much cheaper. alongside grenades and other things. Upon unlocking the Infantry Support Center, the 3 abilities you get is Hold the Line. Infantry within a specific sector are able to gain additional cover bonuses and gain overall more power in the area, essentially making an area much harder to fight into as long as you have good cover to use. You can have a raiding smoke, which is very simply allows you to fire a a smoke barrage into a specific area in order to either cover in advance or protect your units. And then rapid assault. Infantry units simply capture and capture enemy territory and also move faster. The next support center that we're able to get access to is the Mechanized Support Center. It is 150 manpower and 30 fuel, same as all the other support centers, and unlocks a vehicle repair bay and the M3 75mm gun motor carriage built from the motor pool. We'll get to that in just a moment. But it is an effective anti-tank and barrage unit. The vehicle repair bay very simply allows you to move vehicles into your HQ, and engineers are able to run out from the support center and will repair it for free, essentially acting like a free repair squad. There's also the various upgrades within the support center. So first off, we have smoke canisters for 100 manpower and 20 fuel. Sherman and Chaffee tanks are armed with smoke canisters, or they're armed with a 3-inch mortar capable of firing a barrage of smoke canisters, while the M8 Greyhound can fire a smoke shell at a target. Overall, meant to be able to blind and cover positions, allowing you to successfully get out or safely get out of a dangerous situation. The radio and recon is 100 manpower and 15 fuel, and unlocks the spotter toggle ability for the Greyhound. Essentially, they trade away their field of view but are able to see farther, so they have less peripheral vision but are able to see in a farther cone. There's also the radio net, which appears on the Chaffee, Hellcat, and Sherman, and essentially, as long as multiple units with this radio net are nearby, units will see farther and do more and be more accurate. A very effective way to improve your vehicles, especially when they're massed late game. Improvised armor is 100 manpower and 20 fuel, working on the M8 Greyhound, the Chaffee, the Hellcat, and the Sherman. Essentially, this just improves the armor values for your tanks on all sides. Great way to even the playing field, as it boosts things like the Sherman up to about the same level of armor as the Panzer IV. And then finally, special weapons. The Hellcat is given HVAP rounds, which is essentially an extra high penetration round, making it able to penetrate even the toughest of enemy armors. The Sherman and Greyhound get canister shots, an anti-infantry ability that allows them to barrage the enemy or shoot it at an enemy infantry squad and do very high damage. You can entirely wipe squads with that ability. You also get APCR rounds for the Chaffee, which is similar to HVAP as a higher penetration round. And then the Bulldozer Sherman gets access to white phosphorus rounds, able to barrage an area. Again, white phosphorus, you essentially smoke an area, while also anything standing in the smoke will take damage. Effective at forcing enemy team weapons or vehicles to move out of an area for an extended period of time. And that costs 100 manpower and 20 fuel. Overall, very useful pickups, especially late game, to really boost the value of your armor. The 75mm gun motor carriage, which is unlocked from the Mechanized Company, is actually within the Weapon Support Center, not the motor pool like the indicator states. I was actually incorrect about that. So it was actually changed to the Weapon Support Center, meaning that it can come out if you've successfully built this. The AT gun, it acts as an AT gun, being able to directly fire AT rounds, and it is quite effective at that. But it is also able to fire a high explosive barrage, which allows it to successfully attack enemy team weapons and various other things, acting as both an AT gun and also as a support weapon. Veterancy-wise, it can unlock the target weak point, where it will fire a shell to stun enemy vehicles for a short duration. Very useful in combination with other allied vehicles that can then get around the flanks and attack the side or even rear armor of a tank, or it can unlock Take Aim. When the vehicle is stopped, it takes 10 seconds to charge up, but once it does, the crew will guaranteed land its first shot, which is very good to help make sure it is very effective as a defensive tool, because you don't have to worry about ever missing that shot. Overall, the 75 is actually a really strong unit right now. It is very good at barraging the enemy and just doing a lot of work at either softening units up with its anti-tank, with its barrage abilities, or also just acting as an AT unit that is earlier in the game compared to something, it's a mobile version of something like the Bazooka Squad. Upon picking the mechanized support ability, you're able to unlock you also get access to the raid ability, which allows all vehicles to capture and hold territory for a short duration without needing infantry. Field repairs, all stationary vehicles will heal themselves out of combat as long as they don't move or shoot at anything, or you get designate command vehicle. Essentially, a vehicle will be upgraded to have increased line of sight and improves nearby vehicles in their combat performance. The third and final support center available to us is the Air Support Center, again for 150 manpower and 30 fuel. This does not currently provide any other benefits, but allows you to upgrade several abilities related to air power. The first one is a advanced recon run, which improves your basic recon run and allows it to provide more line of sight. That costs 75 manpower and 15 fuel. Air supply, which is 100 manpower and 30 fuel, reduces the cost of all of this air support center's abilities by 30%, allowing you to use them for cheaper. You also have access to the air supremacy, which for 100 manpower and 25 fuel lowers the recharge rate of air support center abilities by 50%, so they're 50% faster. And then finally, double sortie, 150 manpower and 40 fuel, and it allows you to have your strafing runs and bombing runs come with 2 planes instead of 1. And the big benefit of that is that you are able to almost guarantee that the attacks will go off, as even anti-air often is not able to shoot down 2 planes until much before they get their abilities off, making it much safer to use this and use these late game. These abilities are quite self-explanatory. You have a recon run, you have a strafing run, which suppresses and kills enemy infantry, and then you have a dive bomb, which is essentially a tactical strike that does very high damage in a small range. Useful if you're able to engine crit an enemy vehicle or otherwise stun it. That can enable you to kill even the toughest of enemy units. The Tier 3 we are able to build is the motor pool. This is you are required to build a support center, but this provides you with several light armored vehicles and your anti-tank gun. It costs 200 manpower and 55 fuel, making it cheaper than the other building, which is our Tier 4, which will have even better tanks. But this is very useful for a better mid-game vehicle, and these vehicles definitely do have a lot of power behind them. The first vehicle available within the motor pool is the MH Greyhound for 280 manpower and 40 fuel. You get a light vehicle. It is armed with a 37mm M6 gun and can upgrade a 50 caliber Pintle machine gun for 50 munitions. The M8 Greyhound is overall an effective vehicle against infantry and other light vehicles. However, it struggles against tougher armored opponents due to its smaller gun. It is essentially your version of it is one of the high-end light vehicles, able to push over things like half-tracks and stuff like the SDKFZ 221, but struggles against medium tanks and anything bigger than that. Veterancy-wise, it can unlock the radio net, which essentially nearby vehicles will essentially receive a buff to their accuracy. Or it can unlock the Seek and Destroy ability, which allows the MH Greyhound to move faster, and also it will reveal enemy vehicles in the Fog of War. This can be useful as a recon ability or potentially used as a way to dive into the enemy flanks in order to get an important kill on either something like a heavily damaged light vehicle. Maybe you send it in to kill off an infantry unit that has otherwise retreated out of range, or to potentially get a flank on a heavier vehicle like a Panzer IV, in a hope that you can get around the back of it and kill it. The next unit available in the motor pool is the M1 AT gun. It is a 57mm AT gun that costs 270 manpower. It's pretty simple as one of your as your primary AT gun. It's got a relatively wide firing arc, but is slow and easily killed if it's flanked. It is able to specially load a armor-piercing round. They do more damage and have a higher penetration value. This is to compensate for otherwise a lower amount of penetration that might be seen with this compared to something like the Pak 40. Veterancy-wise, it can get focus sight, essentially increasing the line of sight in a narrow cone, but the squad is unable to move if you activate it, which can make it even harder to get the squad out of danger should something like a flank be pulled off on it. It also can unlock the brace ability. The AT gun stops firing and instead takes cover, significantly increasing its durability while the ability is active. Useful if you want to keep an AT gun around, but it gets a flank from an infantry. You're able to brace and then protect it for a while, save it from maybe being decrewed, and then pulling it out after you've safely brushed away the enemy attacks. Overall, the AT gun is very useful as a supporting tool. Unlike in other Company of Heroes games, the AT gun is not always the most powerful AT tool, namely because it is actually quite slow. But in your backline, it is very effective at creating a screen where tanks and other AT units can safely operate and then fall back into the firing cone in order to not risk getting overrun. The final unit available to the motor pool is the M24 Chaffee. It costs 320 manpower and 50 fuel and is armed with a 75mm gun, the same one that is on the Sherman. The M24 Chaffee is built as a tank hunter. It deals very high damage to enemy vehicles for it at its tier, and even has the penetration to threaten even medium tanks, especially if it can get around to the side, which it actually can do because it is pretty quick moving. Veterancy-wise, it has flanking speed, which the squad or the vehicle will move at a higher speed around, making it useful to flank. Or it can unlock Seek and Destroy, where the M24 Chaffee will detect units in the Fog of War. Both of them are useful for what the Chaffee is for, which is either hunting enemy light vehicles or doing hard flanks around heavier vehicles in order to still become a threat. Against infantry, it really struggles as it just doesn't have a lot of DPS against them, but it is essentially like the Puma from Company of Heroes 2, where it is one of the best AT units available, but doesn't have a lot of anti-infantry. Then the final tier we construct is the Tank D-Pod for 300 manpower and 120 fuel. This gives us our late game units. It's going to unlock the M4 Sherman, the 105mm Bulldozer, and the M18 Hellcat. The first unit we're going to take a look at in the tank depot is the M4A1 Sherman. It is 360 manpower and 90 fuel for the US's primary medium tank. Armor-wise, it is less than the Panzer IV, but it's still enough to resist most early forms of AT. It has the ability to upgrade a 50 caliber machine gun as a pintle, increasing its anti-infantry DPS even more. It also has the ability to unlock either the high explosive round, which is an ability that will change the shell type that the Sherman fires for a duration to be highly effective against infantry, but with lower penetration, making it almost useless against most enemy armor at this stage. The other option is the white phosphorus round, which you are able to fire at an enemy vehicle, which will blind it, which is highly effective at either crippling a tank by making it unable to shoot back, although you won't be able to shoot at it either, or making it so you can successfully retreat. Overall, the Sherman is a very capable tank at the moment. It does very good. It does enough work against enemy armor to be capable and competent there, while also being very good against infantry with its multiple machine guns. On top of the high explosive rounds, it can be very good at messing infantry up, even in heavy cover, while the white phosphorus rounds and flanking can make it easier for the Sherman to tackle even something like a Tiger, although you definitely will want to try to use 2 or maybe even 3 Shermans to tackle a heavy tank like that. The second unit we have available in the Tier 4 tank depot is the M18 Hellcat. For 320 manpower and 70 fuel, we get the tank destroyer of the US base roster. It can upgrade a 50 caliber machine gun pintle, giving it some amount of AT, but is mainly an open-topped tank armed with a 76mm gun, which is much more capable at attacking enemy armor. It naturally has the ability flanking speed, allowing it to rapidly move around enemy flanks to attack at a easier position. Armor-wise, it has even lower armor than the M4 Sherman, which is an important thing to note, as the M18 Hellcat is very vulnerable, as it actually has quite low health at the moment. In fact, the Tiger is able to two-shot it, which makes it very risky to use. But it is very powerful, as it does have, again, a higher penetration than the standard M4 Sherman. It has 2 abilities: long-range barrage, which allows it to act as a pseudo artillery piece, able to barrage an enemy position with HE rounds, or it can unlock the long-range ambush, where the vehicle will remain stationary and camouflage itself, but can increase its range and accuracy and sight in a cone in front of it, making it very good at ambushes and defending enemy positions where they can't engage the Hellcat until you at least get 1 round off. Overall, the Hellcat is the best source of AT available to the US base roster. At the moment, it may be a little weak and needs some buffs, but it will definitely be an important tool in any US roster late game. The 76mm gun is only available on this and units in the Battlegroups, meaning that unless you're using a Battlegroup that has a better pure armored tank, the Hellcat will be the main way you're going to deal with heavy German tanks, with like stuff with the Brumbar, the Tiger, the Panther, and even upgraded Panzer IVs. There's also the fact that it will get HVAP from a certain upgrade in the Mechanized Center, the special weapons, that allows the Hellcat to have even better penetration, which allows it to perform an even better role as an anti-tank platform. The final unit we have access to in the Tier 4 tank depot is the M4 Bulldozer Sherman. For 420 manpower and 90 fuel, it serves as the primary howitzer unit and is able to deal high damage to infantry, but lacks really any form of AT. Armed with a 105mm howitzer and 2 30 cals, it is actually really good at killing enemy infantry. On top of that, it can also load a pintle machine gun, increasing its anti-infantry even more. Very good at draining the health, as the main howitzer deals incredibly high damage. It also notably has access to the dozer blades. When the dozer is lowered, the dozer Sherman will be able to destroy a lot of things like hedgerows, tank traps, and also clear vehicles. However, it can also raise it in order to increase its speed. As you can see, when we're lowering it, it's moving and rotating slower. So there's a trade-off, but using this is definitely very useful. It comes with 2 vet abilities, either a bunker buster barrage or an incendiary barrage. The bunker buster barrage essentially fires a salvo of delayed explosives, but ones that are more powerful. Very useful against emplacements, or also very, very good at dealing with enemies that are just kind of sitting there and the enemy's not paying attention. The other one is the incendiary barrage, which is quite self-explanatory. It is very simply able to fire a salvo of rounds that will set the area ignite, and anything standing in it will burn to death. Overall, the Bulldozer Sherman is an excellent addition, as it is by far one of the best sources of anti-infantry available in the base roster. Able to chunk off large amounts of HP in a single shot. It's very good at softening up those annoying Axis infantry that are otherwise beating up on your riflemen or whatever infantry you're using. It doesn't have any source of AT, so you definitely don't want to get this first unless you are for certain you have the AT to support it, like anti-tank guns, bazooka teams, maybe like a Chaffee out. You got to be careful getting this first. But after your first or second Sherman, a Bulldozer Sherman can be a very good way to help really knock off the Axis players' very powerful infantry squads. Taking a look at the battle groups, we're going to look at the Armored Battle Group first. On the left side in the Engineer Corps, we have a split option between Assault Engineers and a Veteran Crew. We're going to cut quickly to the Assault Engineers. Upon taking the Assault Engineers, you will have your basic Engineer squad replaced with the Assault Engineers. They have the same cost at 200 manpower, but come with a 5th man and are more effective in combat. Otherwise, they are pretty much the same thing as the standard Engineers, but the 5th man and the improved combat effectiveness makes them a very scary close-range unit. That is able to really smash up grenadiers and other long-range infantry if they can close the distance. The other option from the Assault Engineers is Veteran Crews, which all vehicles you produce will start at Vet 1, allowing them to instantly pick their abilities. This is really potentially quite good, because many of those abilities can really improve the effectiveness of your armored units, such as being able to immediately use a special ability like flanking speed, or special barrages, or camouflage, or a variety of other things. Moving down, we have Field Repairs, or the M31 Recovery Vehicle. The Field Repairs allow crews to damage all, which is an activated ability. All crews on the battlefield that aren't in combat will repair their vehicles. Quite effective. It costs 2 CP, while the M31 requires only 1 CP. And the M1 Recovery Vehicle costs 45 fuel and 300 manpower, and is a very powerful unit. It has no combat ability, but is able to repair friendly vehicles. It can restore wrecks for a cost equal to their standard ability, such as this Whirlwind. We're able to repair it into a fully functioning vehicle. We can also salvage a wreck for fuel. But we're going to give this a second to repair the enemy vehicle. Vet-wise, the M31 actually doesn't have anything. There's no benefits, and its armor is laughable. It will almost instantly get destroyed. But there we go. We've just repaired this Whirlwind wreck into a fully functioning Whirlwind. It does retain heavy engine damage and starts at very low life, so we'll have to repair it further, but this is overall a really powerful vehicle at the moment. It might be expected to be nerfed in the future, but It's a very powerful way to recover your vehicles or steal important enemy armored units. The final one is War Machine, which provides a reduction in cost for 4 CP to all vehicles that you build. If we take a look, we're going to look at the Sherman. It's 360 manpower and 90 fuel. But if we pick this up, it has gone down to 270 manpower, but remains at the 90 fuel. This essentially cuts the manpower cost of all your vehicles, which makes it much easier to produce them in greater numbers or just simply make them more affordable. On the left side, in the armored doctrine of it, we can get fast deploy, where simply all vehicles are built 50% faster, or we can get strength and steel, where the upkeep and population cost of vehicles are reduced by 50%, making it much easier to field a larger army and have a better manpower income. Both are very powerful, fast deploy allowing for very aggressive timings, while strength and steel allows for a powerful economy. You have the M8 Scott, which costs 240 manpower and 60 fuel, and can essentially be seen as a version of the Bulldozer Sherman with a more artillery-like role. You can fire at high explosive barrage anywhere. It'll also automatically fire at any vehicle that are within its range, or any infantry within its range. It can also unlock either a white phosphorus barrage that allows it to very simply lay down white phosphorus, or a bunker buster barrage, which fires delayed explosives that deal higher damage against emplacements. Both are very powerful and stuff we've seen on other units already. But the M8 Scott is cheaper than those other options and combines multiple things into one, making it a pretty powerful ability at dealing with important units by barraging like team weapons and then being able to soften enemy infantry up that are getting kind of close. Overall, actually quite the powerful unit. The other option is Seek and Destroy. All vehicles will move faster and perform better in combat, which means stuff like increased accuracy and higher damage during the ability's activation. This can be very useful when you get into those big fights late game with armor. Being able to improve the capabilities of your Hellcats and Shermans and whatnot makes them much more powerful. The final unit we're going to talk about, the group of units we're going to talk about, is the M4A3 8E E8 Sherman Task Force, the Easy 8. This is essentially a super form of the Sherman. It costs 640 manpower and 120 fuel. You get access to a basic rifleman squad alongside an Easy 8. It is essentially an M4 Sherman, but it's armed with a 76mm gun, essentially combining the M18 Hellcat's penetration values with the Sherman's better durability and better anti-infantry capability, on top of being quite fast. It can upgrade a pintle machine gun for 50 munitions, and its veterancy abilities, it can unlock HVAP rounds, which is a timed ability that allows it to do more damage and have higher penetration against vehicles, or it can get flanking speed, allowing it to move faster and have better received accuracy, making it good at flanking the enemy. The Easy 8 is definitely one of the highlights of this doctrine, being a much better all-arounder vehicle, although maybe not as powerful as a Sherman, as a Tiger. They are significantly cheaper. They come with a rifleman squad, which can bolster your infantry forces, and are overall very well-rounded. The Armored Doctrine overall has quite a lot of power contained within it, able to potentially turn a very high economy game, while also having the powerful Easy 8 to better match up against stuff like Panzer IVs and even heavier tanks like Panthers and Tigers. Next, we're going to take a look at the Airborne Battlegroup. We're going to take a look at the left side first. So you can either choose a 0 CP smoke bombing run or a 1 CP recon loiter. The loiter will stay over the area for an extended period of time, making it superior to other recon abilities, while the smoke bombing run offers you a quick moving way to cover your units, or cover an advance, or cover a retreat. Both are useful support abilities. Then you have either a supply drop, or that drops munitions and medical supplies, or a paradrop reinforcements. The paradrop reinforcements are essentially you choose two areas, and you choose an area, a really large area, and any paratrooper units within that area are able to reinforce. The supply drop, on the other hand, we can show you directly, costing 150 manpower. Planes will fly over and deposit them in a specific area. But we can also talk about the final two, either the dual P-47 rocket strike, which brings in two P-47s. Rockets are very powerful against tanks. Or we can call in the carpet bombing, which is slow to arrive and requires 5 CP and is very expensive, but is killer lethal. And it will simply annihilate almost anything that gets access to it. Showing off these these munition crates, if we pick one up, we get about 100 or so munitions available to us. The medical crates will heal a squad that picks them up. But otherwise, those are the tiers. I'm sorry, we just missed the carpet bombing room. But as you see, this building was utterly leveled, that building was utterly destroyed, and the Brumbar was murdered in its entirety. If we move on to the left side, then we have access to either the Pathfinder squad or a 30 cal airdrop. The Pathfinders cost 0 CP, while the Pathfinders cost 0, and the Browning costs 1 to drop.
Our objective's clear.
If we take a look at Pathfinders, they cost a total of 200 manpower. And as you see, replace your scout squad, as they are essentially a superior scout squad. They cost the same at 200 manpower, but have access immediately to recon flares and smoke grenades, which is normally a 30 munition upgrade to get. They also have a rifle grenade, giving them a much more aggressive form of upgrade. They still capture territory 50% faster, still have Garand rifles, and still contain the same veterancies of either stealth recon, which allows them to, they don't fire and move slowly, but can move through open ground camouflaged, or passive medkits, which allows them to heal when out of combat. They are significantly better than the standard scout squad, though, and are much more capable of being an actual combat unit, although they can't go one-for-one with stuff like a standard grenadier squad. At range, they can actually be quite the annoyance and quite the potent unit, and can definitely benefit a lot more the army. It's entirely possible to use 2 to 3 Pathfinders and then go into the weapon support center and use like machine guns and snipers to better support them. Next up, the option you got is paratroopers. These are very basic. A core unit, they are an elite infantry that costs 320 manpower, but can drop anywhere on the field no matter what. They do not require line of sight, meaning you could technically drop them in the enemy HQ, although they're probably going to die, so I would not do that. Also, don't land them in front of the enemy units, as they take an extremely long time to get up, which leaves them very vulnerable, and they'll likely lose models, making them ineffective. They are armed with M1 carbines and have a grenade, and a cooked grenade, notably, which blows up significantly faster. They also have a satchel charge, which is a very powerful explosive. They can upgrade either the M9 bazooka package, which equips them with 2 bazookas for 90 munitions, or they can pay 90 munitions to equip 2 M1919 Browning machine guns. These are powerful weapons, and generally you want to pick the Browning MG first. Bazookas can be covered by other units, but the long-range potency of the Browning machine guns is something you don't see elsewhere, and really helps this to be a very effective infantry combat squad. Combined with the Cook grenade, and they're quite powerful at holding down an area.
Order coming in, boys.
They have two abilities: quick capture, which allows them to capture territory quickly. These are the Vet 1's abilities. Or they can ambush camouflage. When in cover, the paratrooper squad will hide itself, and then upon starting its fire, it'll get a damage and accuracy boost, making them very lethal, especially when paired with the Browning machine guns. Then the final option, the final tier option, is the anti-tank gun paradrop. You simply drop paratroopers with a M1 AT gun right into the field. It costs 330 manpower, which is notably more than the standard one, but you're able to quickly land it anywhere on the field, which can be very useful to quickly reinforce an area with an airborne anti-tank gun. If you combine that with a paratrooper drop, you could technically lock down an area almost on it your own, as long as you're able to fend off infantry attacks. It does contain the same things as an AT gun and doesn't have anything otherwise special for it. And that is the Airborne Battlegroup. The left side is built a lot around supporting abilities, while the right side has infantries. In general, I have seen that usually Pathfinders and paratroopers can make it entirely possible to use them without ever building a single rifleman squad. Although you do have to be careful in managing that, it can be a powerful ability. On top of that, the ability to have things like recon runs and rocket runs and other off-map abilities is actually really useful in order to help deal with enemy heavy armor, which this doctrine otherwise doesn't offer a whole lot against. And with that, that is the end of our full U.S. force overview for this pre-alpha, covering both battle groups, all the teching decisions, all the upgrades, all the veterancy, everything. Quite a lot to digest. Definitely a lot of work goes into this, but I've definitely really actually liked what they did. Notably, that dual veterancy system I think is really cool. I've really enjoyed how it can change a unit's role massively. Riflemen being able to either act as an aggressive unit able to run past machine guns, or being able to act as a suppressive platform with a well-timed ability is a really cool concept, and it translates very well into a lot of things. The balance may not be perfect, but I definitely really like the idea and seemingly like where this is all going. I'm excited to see more battle groups. I'm excited to see some balance changes. But other than that, just again, leave a comment down below if you like the U.S. forces, and if you do, tell me what your favorite part of the U.S. forces was. Also, make sure to like and subscribe, as again, I'm going to be doing a probably one last video just kind of talking about my thoughts on the game overall, or this pre-alpha overall, I should say. But otherwise, thank you all so much for watching, and have a good day.